Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I wanted to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and Quests from the Infinite Staircase. Chapter one, and I want to talk about how Quests from the Infinite Staircase is really really powerfully changing Dungeons and Dragons, and one of the things is how changes in Dungeons and Dragons are huge changes in Dungeons and Dragons are missed by the vast majority of D&D commentators because they're focused on the small, right? They're like, "Oh, what subclass changes are coming? How many more DPS can my fighter do? Is there a new spell change?" And these huge changes and also continued traditions that are extremely powerful are just completely missed, not even seen by the D&D commentary, hoi polloi, I would say. Um, actually, I would say the D&D commentary masses, like the kind of the Bob Builders of the world, the dungeon dudes, those kind of guys, just looking for subclasses changes and also just kind of like not honestly, I think not reading the books, right? Like if you just read, and I think that's another thing is I just think a ton of people are not reading the actual D&D canon hardbacks that are talking about D&D in depth. And you're like, what's happening? Okay, let me stay focused here. All right, so what I want to talk about today is the way that Dungeons and Dragons um, uses the way that Dungeons and Dragons embraces every Dragon Master who comes to the table, every Dungeons and Dragons player that comes to the table, and unlike the OSR and the indie, which work hard to leave people behind. Okay, all right. So I'm reading Quest from the Infinite Staircase, and Chapter One has all this information about the actual crafting of the Infinite Staircase. It says, listen, the Infinite Staircase is set, it's made, okay, but it's extremely difficult to damage. But if your player characters do damage it, the damage that they've done is going to be redone, is going to be fixed by crews who come and repair the Infinite Staircase on the regular, but they're never seen. Their work is just found, right? And so I was like, why are they putting all this material in here to tell me that one, it's extremely difficult for the player characters to damage the Infinite Staircase, and then if they are successful in damaging it, that it'll be repaired very soon, right? Without them even knowing when they go to sleep, right? That kind of thing, right? And the player characters will never see the crews that do the work or the maintenance on the Infinite Staircase. And I'm like, so Dungeons and Dragons design team, I think it's Justice Armin. Yeah, I think it's Justice Armin who's the lead design on this. And I've seen him do some interviews with Todd Kenrick. Todd Kenrick does a fantastic job. He just really crushes it, and he's doing a really fantastic job doing all this work to get out these great videos for the 50th celebration, right? So what I thought was really interesting was, so we have this going on, right? And it's really, yeah. So, okay. So I'm like, why are they investing all this time explaining to me, what if the player characters destroy the Infinite Staircase? And you're like, what player characters, what dragon masters would come in and like knock down the main thing for the story itself? And I realized Dungeons and Dragons doesn't leave a single dragon master behind, but the OSR and the indie do constantly. They do it all the time, right? So I was like, okay, what is happening here, right? So with Dungeons and Dragons, they are writing every D&D canon hardback, and they're like, listen, we don't need to provision the brilliant players, right? We don't need to provision the good players because they're going to do the right thing without us, right? But we got a bunch of knuckleheads who are going to try to destroy the dungeon master's quest. They're going to try to destroy the main narrative. They're going to do a bunch of stuff. They're going to do a bunch of nonsense, and we need to protect the dungeon master in this. We need to write Dungeons and Dragons as D&D canon hardback as though it's being played by the worst players. And I'm like, what? Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Now, why is that important? Well, go onto Twitter, right? And go into these books. And they're like, oh, hey, you got some knucklehead player there? You just toss them out. You don't use them, right? And they're like, you need to find the right people to sit at your table. D&D doesn't do any of this. They're like, find a person to sit at your table. We'll handle the rest, right? Your friends are a bunch of knuckleheads? No problem. We'll write the adventure to handle them. We'll give you protection so that you can continue with the story, right? And I love Blades in the Dark, but Blades in the Dark, OSE, all these games, like they're written and they're like, hey, everybody, you're going to find the perfect little person to sit across from you, and if you don't, throw them out because they're a garbage person, and it doesn't matter. We'll just find the right people, right? You don't just play with anybody. Make sure that you find only the players who take the story seriously, only the players who are the best possible humans you can possibly find, because that's what you deserve, right? And I find that these OSR and indies, and you will hear the creators talk about this, you will hear players, the game masters of these games talk about this. They're like, oh, well, the problem you're having is you're playing with the wrong people. Just throw them out as garbage people because you're better. You're gold standard. You don't deserve to deal with anybody who's toxic or not intelligent or spiteful, right? But Dungeons & Dragons doesn't do any of that, right? They're like, oh, you got toxic people, you got spiteful people, you got just like low intelligence people at your table? No problem. We'll handle it. We'll help you handle it. We'll protect you as a dungeon master. We'll write conditions into the story so that your narrative, your realm, all of your dungeon master elements will survive the nonsense. Because we don't throw people away in Dungeons & Dragons. We improve them. We change them. We transform them, right? You deserve the people who are at your table. If they're toxic, if they're low intelligence, if they're spiteful, the Dungeon Master Guide, the Monster Manual, the Player's Handbook has been written to save and preserve every single Dungeons & Dragons player until they are a Dragon Master, right? And we intend to change, improve, and transform every person. There are no throwaway people at a Dungeons & Dragons table. But there are but everybody who isn't just a perfect player is throwaway in every OSR game. Every indie game are all like, oh, well, this entire game was just like, I honestly believe, right? Like one of the best tabletop role-playing games ever written was Blades in the Dark. It's brilliant and phenomenal. I'm convinced it was tested only with other tabletop role-playing game creators. There was never, I don't believe, that thing had a single actual player, right? Like a full-on knucklehead nonsense player, right? And if you look at it, it's crafted, right, to be played by artisanal like pencil makers from Brooklyn, right? Every single one of them brilliant and innovative and all these kind of things. And if you're not, I think Blades in the Dark will throw you away. I think OSE will throw you away. I think Shadow Dark will throw you away. They want the best, right? Dungeons & Dragons will take every person who comes to the table. We will improve them. We will change them. We will transform them. We will make it work, right? And that is the difference. That is a fundamental difference. And I think it's really critical to understand this. No throwaway people in Dungeons & Dragons. And that's why I love it over every other OSR and indie game. In my humble opinion, that's the correct way to understand Dungeons & Dragons. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.